Molly here. Today we're going to talk about Disney Doctor Who, Season 1, Episode 8, Empire of Death. This episode was, I'll just come out and say it, one of the worst things I have ever seen. So I'm not even going to give it a proper recap. We're just going to dig right into a review here and just talk about this episode and this season, because this story was so convoluted. It would take all day to sit here and recap every single little thing that happened in this one episode. It was crazy. So I'll just start out with the first thing that made me groan in this episode, and that was the memory TARDIS. I guess this was a product of the TARDIS and the time window, but I don't even begin to pretend like I understand how that worked. That just seemed like something that you would expect from Disney, that this was a Tinkerbell type maneuver where everybody needs to, clap their hands so that Tinkerbell comes back to life or whatever. This was crazy.
Unless that's something from an older classic Doctor Who, and I'm talking, it would have to be in the Hartnell or Troughton, because we're fairly well versed in Pertwee on. Yeah, when Molly was trying to get this review together, and she came to me and said, "Old man, I don't know how to do a recap on this because it's so nonsensical. I feel dumber even just writing this on the paper." We both decided, Molly especially said, well, I'm not even going to give a recap because putting a recap together would be more work than what Russell Davies did in making this episode. This episode was nonsensical. There was pieces from all over the place, and it got stupider as the episode went on. We often criticize the Secret Hideout Star Treks for their really bad things that they do, but they usually put together a coherent story. The stories are often stupid, but at least it's a consistent story that makes, in their own stupid narrative, sense. This was just a bunch of random stuff. If they played music in the background, it's kind of like the way music videos used to be, which is kind of these disjointed images. Like that memory TARDIS, I don't even know what to do there. It was a shed full of member berries. That's essentially what it was. All I can think of is Russell thought that would distract people from paying attention to his nonsensical story.
Yeah, I'll admit, when Mel was touching the older doctor's clothes that were hanging there, Colin Baker's tie that she was touching, and that did give me a little bit of something to feel, because here is older Mel than, how I saw her back when she was the companion herself. And it was clear that she was remembering that doctor. But again, like you said, this was member berries on parade, especially when they started showing us the videos of the Pyramids of Mars episode. Oh, because there was Tom Baker, there was Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane, and when Ruby asked about it, Disney Doctor told her those were just people who rode in the TARDIS, and that was just cultural appropriation, and I was just sitting there with my jaw on the floor. He may as well have just whipped it out and just pissed all over the franchise. That's how I felt about that. It made me angry. I don't think Russell Davies likes Doctor Who at this point.
I saw somebody online point this out, that Russell, before the season began, made that Davros change, taking him out of his life support system, because Russell made the connection that was disrespectful to people with disabilities. But then you had this Morris character who looks to be like he has some sort of mobility issues, hence why he's on that Segway. And he just put these guns on the front of the Segway, and Morris is sitting there. There's this scene where Morris is shooting these guns at Sutekh, and it looked ridiculous. And then I'm thinking, well, how is this respectful if we're in this new era of making sure we don't disrespect different cultures, different groups of people? What was that? That was as insulting as I've seen in a while.
I'm just going to say this. If you just glanced at the screen with Morris on the Segway and the colored jacket he was wearing, if you just glanced for an instant and didn't really get a good look, you would swear that was Mini-Me from the Austin Powers series.
Yep, and I feel kind of bad even saying that, but that's what Russell did, was he made that character a joke. Because that's something Mini-Me would have. Mini-Me would have some guns or something on a Segway in the Austin Powers movie. Mm-hmm. And it was just, this thing is like parodying itself.
Yeah, there were a few other things in this episode that it just left me wondering, was Russell Davies setting these people up for ridicule? And that was one of them, because did he actually intend to make that look like Mini-Me from Austin Powers? I don't know. I mean, obviously, I can't know. But I have my suspicions. When you put together all of the things that Russell Davies has done this season that appear questionable, I wonder why people who consider themselves to be woke aren't asking more questions about why would you do that, Russell Davies? Why? Because some of the stuff, it was very stereotypical. I would say people should have been wondering if he was trying to be offensive.
Well, the Bridgerton episode, Rogue, he made the doctor abandon his companion to chase after his gay interest. And that's a stereotype of that culture as well. Russell is gay, so why would he do that?
And people are comparing that to the Madame Pompadour episode with David Tennant and Rose and Mickey. But the thing is, David Tennant's doctor didn't leave Rose alone to fend for herself. Rose and Mickey were together. By then, Rose had been on I don't know how many different adventures with the doctor, because this was her second season. So she wasn't some newbie like Ruby was. What, she'd been on, like, at that point, was it like six adventures with the doctor? And how many of them were actually facing actual aliens?
Well, right. I guess what I was saying was the stereotypes. We were talking about offensive stereotypes of gay culture being this very desire-driven hookup culture. And then, yeah, when we're talking about just the characterization of the doctor himself and abandoning his companion who didn't have a lot of experience dealing with this sort of stuff, I don't understand what Russell's doing. Why should we like this Shooty-Gatwa doctor? What traits does he have that we would say, you know what, in 10 years, when people are talking about the different number doctors, you know, and how it is now where you can go through and some people can even name the sonic screwdrivers and, you know, how that reflects the character of the doctor. Well, Shooty does have a unique looking sonic device, but what is Shooty's character other than his identity of being a black gay male? Because so far they haven't done anything to give him a character other than he breaks down when the least amount of stress is dumped upon him.
That was the next thing I was going to get to. First, I'll say this, though. I think this is the first sonic screwdriver that can do a DNA test, and I'll just leave it at that. That was stupid.
Didn't it have like a port or something?
It did. It opened up and he stuck Ruby's blood in there. Oh, ugh. Anyway, I mean, seriously? Anyway, so back to this episode story. So, in this episode, Mel seemed like the adult in the room. She pulled Ncuti Gatwa's doctor out of that room with Sutekh at the beginning, put him on her little scooter and rode him away from the sandstorm. Somehow they managed to outrun it on that little scooter. Okay. But once they were in the memory TARDIS and the doctor was having his meltdown about how it's all his fault because Sutekh was somehow attached to the TARDIS going everywhere he went, and that's how the universe got destroyed this time. And then Ncuti Gatwa's doctor is like screaming and yelling and crying, and it's Mel and Ruby who have to pull him away from the door and try to comfort him. At what point in this season did this doctor ever act like an adult? Just name one time.
And one would say it's because of the stakes of what happened here and how he was responsible. I'm not trying to defend this storyline, but wasn't the flux the result of trying to cleanse the universe of the Doctor's influence? So this character has already been through this sort of thing, and Whittaker's Doctor handled it better than Ncuti Gatwa, and it was the same type of civilization-ending thing that happened because of the Doctor.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't forget, the Master pulled this crap back toward the end of David Tennant's run as well. So we've seen this thing over and over and over again, and this was by far the worst writing of it. The worst. And that brings me to... They ran off with that screen from the time window that looked like some sort of 1950s television screen. And somehow every time Ruby had it in her hands and she was remembering, it was showing things on the screen. Okay. I'm not even going to pretend to understand how that worked either. That was another ridiculous nonsense thing that happened.
It was magic.
It was magic.
Because when he pulled that screen out originally from the time window area, somehow that thing was designed to be removed.
Yeah.
None of this makes any sense, and I don't know, maybe I'm looking at Doctor Who from an American's eyes, but Doctor Who used to make some sense. There used to be some ties to some cause and effect when it came to the universe and how it worked. And this episode was just one nonsensical thing after another. I don't know how anybody can defend any of this episode because I try to not be so pointed with my criticism when it comes to Doctor Who because I appreciate this is a British culture and I'm American, so I'm looking at this from a foreigner's eyes, so I try to be a bit respectful. And I say that because if you look at the Star Trek videos, I'm not respectful because those are American and Canadians making this crap, and I got no problem calling out my own, so I'm a lot more vicious when it comes to the Star Trek stuff. But with Doctor Who, I try to be a little bit respectful because I'm like, well, as an American, this isn't working for me, but maybe if I was British, I would get this. But this episode, I don't know how anybody, unless they got hit in the head 6 or 7 times, would appreciate this for anything more than a complete waste of time. And the runtime on this was the longest of the season, and it was on par with the length of those 3 60th anniversary episodes. Russell really needed all that extra time. What was it, 54 minutes, I think the runtime was? Russell needed all that extra time to tell this story?
Yeah. Yeah, because even one of my friends who is woke and a fan of Doctor Who, he didn't really care for this season, and he did not like this episode. And again, it comes back to the ridiculous nature of it, and I think that even some of the woke people are realizing that this story was convoluted. It was at best.
It was nonsense.
Yeah.
Convoluted, I think, is being too kind. This was a nonsensical story that made no sense at all. And all season, we've both been trying in our reviews to look for something positive to say, well, Dot and Bubble, I liked the first 20 minutes of it. or boom, we liked the first like 10 or 12 minutes of it. And then we were explaining what we liked about it so that we weren't just ripping on the thing because there were positive elements. There is not a single positive element of this entire episode that we just watched.
No. Because the next thing I wanted to talk about, so we have this screen from the time window that Ruby's running around with, and she's holding it, and on the screen you see her memory from that Roger Ap William timeline that she lived, but then she didn't. 73 yards. And 73 yards had to do with perception filter on the TARDIS, and apparently how Sutekh was seeding the planets that the Doctor visited with all of these Su triads all over the place. Again, utter nonsense in my opinion. And that also brings up the question, so if Roger Ap William still comes to power and does his thing and does the DNA testing mandatory on everyone, what the hell was that 73 Yards episode actually about? What did that accomplish? Why did Ruby have to live that timeline and then go back? Like, what the hell was that?
If he's going to happen anyway?
Yes!
Because he was, if I'm remembering the end of 73 Yards, when future Ruby scared him away and he ran into hiding.
He resigned.
Yeah, he just wanted to stay away from politics.
Yeah, he resigned at the very beginning, so he didn't get to do any of the DNA testing or any of the other stuff that they alluded to. So, what the hell was that? What was the point of that other than so that they could have that commentary on Tomato, which, again, I'm just going to say this, it should not be verboten to ask whether or not a post-World War II organization still serves the same purpose it did after World War II. In my grandparents' time, it was before my mom even. So we should be talking about and revisiting things, and when Russell Davies writes episodes just so that he can put out there that we shouldn't be questioning things, who the hell is this guy? This isn't the same guy who wrote the original Comeback back in 2005. What the hell is this?
I'm really starting to wonder if Russell has all of his marbles.
I don't think he does.
And I don't mean that to be insulting, even though that's probably not the kindest way to put it. But this episode was the equivalent, the nonsensical nature of somebody writing on the wall with their own poop. And I'm not trying to say that just for effect here. I mean, this really felt like an unbalanced person doing something that makes absolutely no sense to an outsider.
Well, he's a very different person now than he was back in 2005, I'll tell you that. Because this was garbage. I don't know how this got made other than he had a bunch of clout behind him from what he accomplished in the past. Again, you shouldn't just go with your first draft. You should have had other eyes on this saying, you know, maybe you need to fix this or take this out or add some here. And I don't think he did any of that.
Later on, I'm sure on your list is going to be something that relates to what I'm going to bring up here. So if we go back to the 60th anniversary when Ncuti Gatwa bi-generated, and in his underwear, he had that Roger Rabbit mallet and said, "Here's mine." And he takes the mallet, smashes the TARDIS, and makes two TARDISes. Yeah, Tardi.
In this instance, I think they're Tardi.
And what I don't get is somebody in the comments said that Russell has officially stated that Ncuti's driving around in the original TARDIS and David Tennant has the copy. But how is that with that visual? I mean, the stupid hammer, we could have an argument about how stupid that is in general. But taking the hammer, and when you look at the visuals, you're knocking a copy out of the original. Is Russell trying to say when he hit it with the mallet, he knocked the original out of the copy?
No. That's not what happened visually on that screen, because Ncuti Gatwa went into the copy, the second TARDIS, the one that came out of the first one, is the one he went into. And that's where he demonstrated that this new TARDIS has a wheelchair ramp built into the door. So this was not the original that he got into. The original didn't have that. That's the one that David Tennant got in. That also brings up the question, so if David Tennant's doctor is out there sitting in Donna's backyard, what was he doing while all this Sutekh was going on?
Yeah, because that's the thing. Because Rose 2 was in this episode, that's Donna's child. So therefore, Donna is in this continuity that we're in. Therefore, last we saw, David Tennant is there as well. So what, he just kind of sat and said, life is not worth living anymore, and just sat there and just let Sutekh take care of business?
I have no idea. And again, it's like, so Sutekh transferred from that original TARDIS to the new TARDIS with Ncuti Gatwa to go around with that. I guess maybe he saw that David Tennant's doctor had enough, so he had to, like, jump onto that other one. I mean, again, convoluted and stupid. Ridiculous is what this is.
Just so we're clear, because we're not doing a proper recap, what was stated in narrative is, ever since the Pyramids of Mars, Sutekh has been latched onto the TARDIS, I guess hiding. So, on all the travels that the Doctor made since the Pyramids of Mars, Sutekh has been hitching a ride and using the perception filter to hide. That's what Molly is saying, is when Ncuti Gatwa's doctor used the Roger Rabbit mallet and knocked out a copy, did it knock Sutekh into the other TARDIS?
It didn't knock him in next week.
Yeah. Or did it make two Sutekhs?
Maybe. Yeah. If you're ready, I'm going to move on to the next point. Okay. So Sutekh didn't kill the Disney Doctor and Ruby because of the mystery of Ruby's birth mom. Sutekh, this godlike creature, didn't kill them because he just had to know who Ruby's bio mom was.
Well, just remember, Ruby's mom was super special. She was something that this god advanced alien did not want to mess with. That's how special Ruby's mom was, and thus Ruby herself being the offspring. Oh no, the episode actually said that Ruby's mom was just a normal person. There was nothing at all special about her because the world is made of non-special people.
Yeah, and of course, so why did it snow every time Ruby would think about that, yeah. Yeah, and the other thing about that is, I think I understand what Davies was trying to do with that. I think that was his way of trying to rewrite Donna Noble's turn left yet again, because she thought she was nothing special and she saved the universe. And I think that he was trying to do that again. But again, there's another instance where he is trying to rewrite stuff he's done before, and he's not doing it nearly as well. I mean, really, really bad. Because as it turns out, Ruby's biological mother was a 15-year-old teenaged mom who dumped her baby on the steps of a church in the middle of a snowstorm. And everybody's supposed to be okay with that. What a brave girl she was. Yeah, so Ruby's mom wasn't special other than Sutekh had to know who she was, so this mystery is, I guess, what saved the world. This was so bad. So bad. And then, how the Disney Doctor defeated Sutekh using his smart gloves and that smart rope that they tied around, I guess, to the collar Sutekh was already wearing, because Sutekh was a big frickin' dog.
Yeah, Sutekh was like a jackal or something. But yes, let's call it a dog, because I know where you're going with this.
A jackal is a type of canine, so yes, it was a big dog that he tied a rope to its collar and then dragged it to death behind the TARDIS. Which immediately, first thing I thought of was National Lampoon's Vacation, where Clark Griswold dragged the family dog to death behind the family station wagon, which, frankly, is the one scene that makes me absolutely despise that film, because I am not okay with that. That is not funny in any way, shape, or form.
I know they would argue that, well, this wasn't a god, an entity. This wasn't an animal. But it sure looked like an animal. So you're telling me a kid watching this and watching an animal getting dragged to death behind somebody's car / TARDIS, that's okay?
The only thing that rivaled that, as far as the worst thing I've ever seen in a Doctor Who episode, the only thing that rivaled that was when Jodie Whittaker's doctor locked all those spiders together in a room with no food. What is wrong with these writers? Is empathy something they just don't possess? Because that scene, I tell you, as I said, I'm not sure which one's worse. That or what Jodie Whittaker's doctor did. Both are disgusting. It's been several days since we watched this episode, and I waited all this time because I'm still trying to calm down from just how angry and just disturbed I was by what I watched. Because right after the National Lampoon's Vacation, next thing that came into my mind was Michael Vick. For anyone who doesn't know, Michael Vick was a quarterback for a National Football League American football team here in the United States.
Atlanta Falcons.
Yep, Atlanta Falcons. He was very good, actually, as a quarterback. And he wound up going to prison because he was running a dogfighting ring on his property. And dogfighting, terrible. And he killed a bunch of dogs on his property there. It was disgusting.
And that goes back to what we mentioned earlier. That's another stereotype of at least that circle of culture there.
In the United States, yes. Yeah. Yes, it is. So again, tone-deaf Russell Davies writing something that I find to be absolutely offensive and should be extremely offensive to anyone who calls themselves woke.
But Davros needs to be out of his life support chair, just so we're clear.
Ugh. Yeah, so it's like, again, was he baiting people with this crap? Does he actually secretly hate Shudigatwa? So he wrote this horrible thing for him to do with terrible optics. So again, this episode, I'm just so angry with what Russell Davies has done here.
I'm glad that this was the final episode for a while, because if we had more episodes to do, I would be saying Molly will be doing those reviews on her own, because I need a break from this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I'm glad this is done.
I think the next episode is the Christmas episode, so that gives us a few months to recover from this garbage.
Yeah. Yeah, so once Shudigatwa drags the dog to death, apparently, since he's killed Death, then everybody who died has now come back to life. Okay, that's fucking magic. Whoa, fuck me. Like, my God. But of course you knew they were going to, because everybody was killed except for Ruby and the Disney Doctor.
So the question that I have is, this dragging the dog behind his TARDIS that brought people back to life, did that undo the flux?
Doubtful, but I don't know. With this, who knows? Anything's possible.
The flux was a gigantic event that they don't seem to talk about, even though they'll still talk about the Timeless Children, but we don't talk about the flux.
Yeah.
So, just wondering if this undid the flux.
I don't know. So then, okay, so everybody's brought magically back to life, and last we'd seen Cherry Sunday, Ruby's grandma. She was sitting there with Mrs. Flood, and they're brought back, but Cherry doesn't seem to remember those horrible things Mrs. Flood said to her in the previous episode. So we still don't know who Mrs. Flood is. Whatever. Honestly, don't care.
I hope that's not going to be Susan.
I'm thinking the Ronnie.
I'm hoping it's not the Ronnie. Like, enough with classic Who. Just move forward with something new. Don't bring up stuff from the past. You're not going to do it right, Russell. More freaking member berries.
Yeah, and it seems to me that he's using more member berries now than he did back in 2005. It's like he's trying to legitimize this crap that he's writing by using member berries, which is what we've seen in a lot of other franchises.
Yeah, we see Star Trek Discovery did that all the time because their stuff was crap, so they wanted to put in the iconography of previous good Trek so that they could trick people. And yeah, I mean, on the restarted 2005 series, sure, he had the Daleks and he had the Cybermen, but he also introduced a lot of newer stuff, even if he didn't like it, like the Slovene. So he had a balance between older stuff and newer stuff. But Russell's new, I mean, what did he introduce new this season?
Well, let's see. Goblins were in the Christmas episode, so I guess that's technically not this season. But then you had the Space Babies with their dirty diaper mobile.
I bet you Big Finish will do an audio about that, because that's a cool concept.
Yeah, and then you had the Perpetual War in Boom, and...
We'll probably hear about that again, because isn't that actress in season 2 going to be the new companion? I don't know if it's going to be the same character, though.
Well, I will say the Christmas episode companion is going to be the one that apparently she's on Bridgerton. So, Nicola something, I can't remember her last name.
Of course she's on Bridgerton.
Yes.
That would make sense.
Yes, but I know her from Dairy Girls.
Mm-hmm. Which is a very funny show.
Yeah, and I should have written her name down. I usually know her name, but right now I'm blanking. But yeah, I loved her on Dairy Girls, and I'm kind of worried about her being in a Doctor Who episode at this point, because...
But she's going to be like an Astrid, right? A one and done?
Yes.
Because
it will be a one and done.
I'm pretty sure the actress that was in Boom...
Yes, she's going to be in the next season. Yeah. But she could be playing somebody else, just like they did with Karen Gillan, how she had been in a previous episode, The Fires of Pompeii, and then she came on as a different character, as Amy Pond, as the companion. So I'm hoping maybe it's that he doesn't go back and get that soldier from that planet. Anyway, so everybody's magically alive. Ruby goes and meets her biological mother, the teenage mother. Turns out that her teenage father didn't even know that Ruby existed, so we didn't get to see that. Surprise, Dad, you're a dad. Yeah, so we didn't get to see that part, just the mom, because the mom was special. Anyway,
Mom was not special.
Yeah. So Disney Doctor leaves Ruby behind to hang out with her biological mom and then to go meet her biological dad. And at the very end of the episode, we have Mrs. Flood telling us how horrible the Doctor's ending is. Oh, boy. So that was the episode. It was convoluted. There was a bunch of magic in there, and nonsense magic at that, because usually, again, I'm a big Harry Potter fan. J.K. Rowling did an excellent job of using actual folklore and spells and established beliefs to write her magical universe and the magic within the universe. This is just... magic wand poof. It's like Q showed up from Star Trek to just snap his fingers.
No, it's the wizard from Cookie Crisp.
Oh, God.
It's nonsensical. I'm trying to think of a stupid wizard that doesn't mean anything. Cookie Crisp guy is the only one I can think of.
Orko.
Yeah, Orko from He-Man.
Yeah. But this was terrible. This was just... as I said in the previous episode, I was going to reserve my judgment till after the second part to make my determination on this episode. This episode was crap, which retroactively made the previous episode crap. And somehow it managed to go back and make 73 yards crap.
Invalidated. The one thing that the episode accomplished, they wiped out. So, yeah, what was the point of it? I thought it was an interesting character study of Ruby, and we learned some traits about her. That's what I said in the review of 73 Yards. But at the end there, it was all erased, and now they're even erasing the erasing. This was nonsense. The only way this can make sense is at the end of this whole Disney RTD run, somehow we find out that this has all been a manipulated reality of nonsensical stuff, like on purpose in narrative. And the Doctor finally figures out, kind of like Matrix style, that there's something else going on. There's a world beyond what he's dealing with. That's the only way any of this makes sense. And even then, it'll have zero rewatchability if that's what he's going to do.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling Russell isn't playing multi-layered here.
No, I think he's too arrogant.
I think he's just, at face value, the story is what it is.
Yeah. And it's bad. Yeah. Really bad.
I was trying last episode in our review to look at the positives and what could happen here, and maybe they could get things figured out for season 2 since they didn't take a break. They just started filming season 2 after season 1. I have no reason to believe that season 2 is going to be good. In fact, it's going to be a train wreck because this was a train wreck. This season, I pulled out 20 minutes of Dot and Bubble at the beginning, the beginning 12-ish minutes of Boom, and maybe last week's, at least they tried to make it feel like a Doctor Who episode. That was it. 20 minutes plus 12 is 32, and then last week was just generically they were trying to tell a Doctor Who episode. I don't want to go out of my way and say it was a good story. And then 73 yards I did like at the time, but now that it doesn't matter, I can't count 73 yards as something that matters in this season. So we have 32 minutes of Doctor Who this season that was watchable. And there were 8 episodes.
All I can say is they had better be doing some major rewrites and reshoots for season 2. Because this was garbage. And if season 2 is anything like this, then you gotta fix this. Because this is a failure. This is terrible. I don't know what happened to Russell Davies, but apparently things like making sense no longer matter to him. Logic? Right out the window.
I mean, maybe he got hit in the head with like a golf ball or something. I haven't seen any dents in the side of his head. But
golf ball? It must have been the whole friggin' club.
Well, maybe a club. He was behind the guy shooting, and then he swung back and hit Russell Davies in the side of the head.
I don't know.
Because this looks like somebody who wrote this who has brain damage. That's... I'm not being overly mean. This was nonsense. I cannot think of anything even remotely, like maybe for a few minutes. Like if we're talking, I can find 12 minutes of ridiculous somewhere else. Okay, but for 54 minutes, I challenge anybody to show me 54 minutes of nonsense. I am glad this was the last episode for a while, because I need to recover from this. The previous episodes, although I wasn't crazy about them, there were pieces here and there that I could, see something in. This episode was worse than the Star Trek Discovery finale. And that was really bad.
Well, Russell Davies thinks Star Trek Discovery is good.
Yeah, in that interview, when we found that out, we said, no wonder this stuff is not going down very well, because this guy thinks Star Trek Discovery is good.
I don't understand. Like you said, there must be brain damage going around, because this was garbage. How did this make it to being made? How did this get to a script and actually get produced and on a streaming service?
How many eyes were on this script through the process and editing, and then they had dress rehearsals, and nobody bothered to say, hey, wait a minute, maybe this isn't so good. And what's scary is maybe somebody did, and this is the cleaned up version.
Oh, that's a bad thought.
So, would I recommend this? No. Stay away from this. There is nothing here but grief. If you're a proper Doctor Who fan, which, like I said, I'm an American that dabbles in Doctor Who, so I realize there's a lot of visitors that are really hardcore into this stuff. I would stay away from this episode. I think it will cause your brain to collapse inside of itself. Just stay away. And if you're a casual viewer, there's nothing here. I mean, you can go on YouTube and get videos that make more sense than what this was.
I would gladly trade this in for Turlo talking to a doorknob in his palm.
Yeah, because on rewatch, we do get a kick out of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Alpha Centauri was way better than this.
Yeah.
Again, I would go back and take bubble-wrapped aliens over this crap writing. Because people seem to think that, oh, well, the effects are so good now, and just look at all the eye candy here. But it's like, I can only look at eye candy for so long before I have to have a proper story. And this was not a proper story.
But what eye candy? Supposedly Russell says they have some extra money because of Disney. Where?
I think all that money went into creating that Sutekh.
So all the money was in creating the dog that the doctor dragged down the street and killed by the collar.
Yes, it was all the money was spent on creating that effect of the dog being dragged behind the TARDIS. Yeah.
Good job, Disney.
God, what the hell? Oh my god. Oh my god. Like, I hope that this is the pinnacle of crap. That maybe the fever is now finally going to break and things will get better. However, we have another season of this. Maybe they just won't release it.
What audience is watching this? I cannot believe there is much of an audience that's excited about, oh my gosh, that finale really has me stoked for season 2.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how you could watch this and think this was good. It doesn't, the logic or lack thereof, bother these people.
Whoa, he got that spoon from that planet and he like jammed the spoon into the monitor to fix something. We left out, if you haven't seen the episode, we left out a lot of stupidity. But somehow, I don't know, I realize I've heard, again, I said the Troughton and the Hartnell stuff I'm not nearly as well versed in. Somebody said that a spoon or a piece of metal previously was used, I think, in the Troughton era to fix something. Somebody share that with us because I don't have experience other than a onesie-twosie with the Troughton and the Hartnell era, just because a lot of times they're so hard to find, and what I do find, the serials aren't always intact.
Yeah, I mean, we've watched what we could get our hands on, but unfortunately that older stuff is not all that available.
I know they have some restorations. Like maybe this episode was out there with this spoon and we just missed it or we didn't pay attention, because how long ago did we watch those Hartnell and Troughtons? That at least was 15 years ago.
It's been a while since we last watched those.
So like I said, you know, I know people who visit our channel in the comments, some are hardcore Doctor Who fans. So if that's a reference to some other episode, I would argue that's yet another Easter egg. Why are you doing that? And if it's not a reference, then it makes no sense to jam a spoon into something to fix it. And then this lady with her dead child that she didn't want to deal with it being dead, and then she gave this last piece of metal to the doctor because he had a kind face.
As I said, logic went right out the window. This was horrible. I don't even know what to say. I don't know. This was not the Doctor Who that I used to love. This just isn't.
I don't even know what this was. Because sometimes I can make a comparison. Oh, this could be a Sarah Jane episode, or it could be this. I have no idea what this is. This is, if you went into the old archives of like a film company and the remnants of what was cut off the final editions of a bunch of different properties and all that scrap stuff that's probably in a bin somewhere. It's like somebody went in a room and grabbed that scrap pile, taped them together and said, here you go.
You remember on Gilligan's Island when they made that black and white film?
That's a good point. Because then when they found it, when the authorities found it, they said it was some nouveau art or something.
I think it was absurdist. Yeah, because Gilligan had destroyed parts of the film, so they had to piece together what was left. And a lot of it was negatives, and then the film running backward.
Or these awkward zoom-ins.
Yes, like on people's teeth. I mean, it was crazy. And that's what this reminded me of. Except the Gilligan's Island absurdist movie was better. Oh my god, this was so bad. I don't even know. I just... Oh my god. I'm still in shock, and it's been several days since I watched this. Russell Davies, I swear he used to be better. Well, he used to be better.
I know he used to be better.
He used to be better. I don't know. Anyway, I don't have anything else to say about this. This was just bad. Oh, God. You guys know what to do. Comments in the space below. And God help us. Let's hope that Christmas episode is going to be better than this, because I don't see how it could possibly be worse, unless Shooty Gatwa's doctor shoots Santa Claus to death. Or maybe he hunts down Rudolph and he has venison for dinner.
Maybe the legend is whenever he meets any new foe, he's going to have a rope with a collar on it, and he's going to shake it in front of him and say, "I did it once, I'll do it again. Get out of my face."
Oh my god. Anyway. Oh god. Thanks for listening, you guys. I'm not sure what our next video is going to be, but oh my god, it's going to be watching something that makes a whole hell of a lot more sense than this.
Take care.
But already you've goofed. Message pictures don't make any money.